Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the February 14th meeting of the Central Florida MPO Alliance. I am Chris Cloudman, Mayor of the City of DeLand, and representing the now Volusia Flagler TPO, and we'll be chairing this meeting. Thank you for being here. I'll ask Commissioner Bob Dilawri from Seminole County and Chair of Metro Plan to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mayor. As we stand here today giving allegiance to our great country, please remember we all come from different counties. I think it's about 10 of them here, different backgrounds. When we work together, it shows the unity of this great country. Please, I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner Dilawri.
Thank you.
All right, now if we can go around the room and introduce ourselves, tell us your name and what MPO or TPO you represent, and that way we can establish if we have a quorum. And we'll just start with Mr. Barnes.
Good morning, Rob Balmas, Director of the Ocala Marion County TPO.
Nancy Daly, Polk County TPO.
Ryan Yates, Polk TPO.
Good morning, Ryan Cordex, Staff Director for the Polk TPO.
Irie Bethea, Ocala Marion.
Michelle Stone, Marion County TPO.
Ken Gilbert, Metro Plan Orlando. Bob Dilawri, Chairman of Metro Plan Orlando.
Gary Hutman, Metro Plan Orlando.
Colleen Nicklin, Director for the Volusia Flagler TPO.
Eric Sanders, South Daytona City Council Chair, Volusia Flagler TPO.
Michael Woods, Director, Lake Sumter MPO.
Don Wiley, Lake Sumter MPO.
Good morning, Sean Parks, Lake Sumter MPO.
Good morning, Georgiana Gillette, Director of the Space Coast TPO.
Mimi Henley, Space Coast TPO.
Lorraine Koss, Space Coast TPO.
Morning, John Scarf, District 5 MPO Liaison Administrator.
Good morning, Bessie Reyna, FDUT District 1 ISD Administrator.
Good morning, Ciaci Fine with the Florida Turnpike Enterprise.
All right, thank you. Welcome, everyone. Do we have a quorum?
Mr. Chair, we do have a quorum physically present.
Well, thank you. Before we move on to public comments, Ms. Whittington has requested that we pause for a brief overview of the Central Florida Alliance. It's not an action item. So with your consensus, I'll call upon Ms. Whittington.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and welcome everyone. Happy Valentine's Day to each of you. And just before I get started, what I want to do is just because we have some new faces and we have some returning faces. Welcome back, Commissioner Parks, Commissioner Campion, Commissioner Stone. It's so good to see all of you. I would solicit your thoughts and prayers also for the family of Senator Geraldine Thompson. She was the senator of District 15 here in Central Florida, and we received word on yesterday that she passed away. So if you will please remember that family. But what we wanted to do on this morning was to do what I call a little leveling the playing field, because we have new members who are joining us and those of you who are returning. And so we wanted to take just a moment just to talk briefly about who makes up the Alliance, its evolution, how do we get here, how we get where we are, the structure that we use, and some of the products and the projects that you have been successful in advancing with this regional partnership we have here. So this slide shows all of our partners that make up the Central Florida MPO Alliance, the 6 MPO TPOs that are in the Central Florida area. Lake Sumter, Metro Plan Orlando, the Ocala Marion TPO, Polk TPO, Volusia Flagler, and Space Coast. And then by extension, we have partnerships also with Florida Department of Transportation, the Central Florida Expressway Authority, and those you see across the bottom there. And I will talk briefly momentarily about the Suncoast Transportation Planning Alliance, which is our partners over on the West Coast. So how did we get here? We realized back in 1997 that there were issues that did not stop at either of our borders. That congestion when people are leaving the central business districts to either go home or, get back to their loved ones, they were bottlenecking at this bridge that goes across the St. Johns River. And that was the initial issue that was mutual between the Metro Plan Orlando Metropolitan Service Area and the Volusia MPO at the time. And so we extended an invitation and went up and had a conversation with Volusia, and that is where the Orlando Volusia Alliance was formed in 1997. And we've been at this for 27 years. And there have been projects that have come along. Some of them have moved slowly. As we know, the wheels of transportation don't always move quickly, but there have been some successes along the way. Brevard joined us in 1999. Lake County in 2000, after the 2000 census, had an opportunity to do a couple of things. One was to decide whether they wanted to be their own autonomous MPO. And they went through an exercise and actually considered joining with Metro Plan Orlando even back then, realizing that, again, we're growing together. They decided to become their own MPO, and we have enjoyed having the camaraderie and the collaboration of being neighbors and partners through this alliance since 2000. In 2001, the alliance, the Central Florida Alliance, which we are today, was officially formed. And we were, by interlocal agreement, made an alliance that was created in 2021. Polk TPO joined us in 23 and Ocala Marion in 2004. So did I say 23? 2003 and 2004 respectively. And so what is it that the Alliance does? Our interlocal agreement calls for us to maintain and update our regional transportation plan. We look for opportunities to advance regionally significant projects and services, which would include establishing regional transportation projects and priorities using TRIP funds and some of the other funds that are available to us. We serve as a forum for exchange, information exchange, and being able to solve regional problems together. Because we realize that when we come together collectively, we can get a lot more done. And this is especially important when we take a look at regionally significant projects. We coordinate the regional transportation plan and policy development along with the Department of Transportation. We identify transportation opportunities, where those opportunities are, and then we solve or seek to solve regional transportation issues. Up to and including, we formerly would establish a set of regional legislative priorities that we would go up and visit our legislators with. We don't do that at this body as much anymore, but we do mutually support one another in the endeavors and those items that you would have to go before your legislators. So when we look at the structure of the alliance, it is 18 elected members. 3 are appointed from each respective metropolitan and transportation planning organization. I'm gonna get mixed up. So if I say MPO, TPOs, please don't hold it against me, okay? So the 3 from each, officers are elected annually, which you will do in just a few moments. You'll elect your 2025 officers. And that has been a mutual rotation that has been respected each year, that the chair would rotate annually. I have the privilege of serving as the staff liaison, and along with your 6 staff directors, you have the administrative support and technical support of the staffs of 6 MPOs. So it's not just one, but there are 6 of us who are here to support you in this endeavor. Metro Plan Orlando serves as the primary repository for all of the work that is done. We tried moving the meetings around the region to let each MPO or TPO host, and that didn't prove fruitful. So we agreed that Metro Plan Orlando would be the place where the magic happens, but we do lean on each of the respective MPOs and TPOs and their staff to assist. There is a biannual meeting that is that we happen to hold with the Suncoast Transportation Planning Alliance, which is our counterparts over on the west coast of Florida. And so every other year we meet with them. We did last year, and we will meet with them again in 2026. Polk TPO happens to be the belt buckle, and they help us with that partnership. And they are on both the Central Florida MPO Alliance and the Suncoast Transportation Planning Alliance. So they bring us together. And then we seek to reach quorum at each of the meetings by having you, the elected officials, here. Lisa tries very hard to make sure, along with the other assistants at your respective TPOs and MPOs, to deliver you, the elected officials. But in the event that all 3 appointed elected officials are not able to attend, by action of this alliance, you made sure that the work can still proceed. And in the absence of all 3, the executive director would be able to vote so long as there's a quorum present in the room. And also, we do have the virtual option for members to participate if you just cannot make it. So as long as there's a quorum in the room, we will count your vote and have you participate virtually if it comes to that. We would really rather have you here, okay? So some of our products, again, I talked about that regional long-range transportation plan. This is when we do a composite of all 6 long-range transportation plans. Once they are adopted, we overlay those, we put them together, and we come up with a regional long-range transportation plan. Georgiana is going to come and present to you today the regional list of priority projects. So I won't steal her thunder, but she's going to give you more about that when she comes forward. But that's one of the products that we are responsible for, as is the Regional Transportation Systems Management and Operations Master Plan. Mr. Eric Hill is going to be presenting that. Although he is not here by the magic of technology, he's going to be presenting to us virtually. And so you're going to hear a little bit more about that. And also our regional indicators report is the last of the products that we as the Alliance produce. And so just to toot your horn, some of the projects that you have been successful in advancing, I go back to that advancement of the I-4 bridge across the St. Johns River. That project was advanced 6 years ahead of what it would have been had this alliance not been formed. And 27 years later, it's really time to start revisiting things like this. So don't be surprised if we have conversations about that. Coast to coast, we have a couple of gaps that are still existing, but it is very, very close to closing that 274-mile trail. And it started with this alliance, along with our partners to the west. This alliance has supported Sunrail throughout its evolution. And the I-4 Ultimate, Beyond the Ultimate, and whatever the next I-4 project will be, we've been able to obtain mutual support because it touches each and every one of your respective jurisdictions. And finally, that TISMO master plan. And so, Mr. Chair and members, I just wanted to be able again to come to you today and by way of introduction to the new members, kind of lay the groundwork of why we're here and the things that we do. And I am here to answer any questions, or we can spend more time talking about specific projects at a later date. Thank
Well,
you.
Thank you. That was a wonderful summary. Do any members have any questions for Ms. Whittington?
All right, thank
I
you.
guess you did a thorough job, so thank you. All right. It's now time for public comment on action items. This is the first of two opportunities for public comments. Public comments relating to action items are heard at the beginning of the meeting, and general comments will be heard near the end. Comments can be made in person or online. People wishing to speak must complete a speaker introduction card, and each speaker will have up to 2 minutes. Members of the public joining us virtually who wish to speak should use the raise hands feature on the Zoom screen. And if participating by phone, you can touch *9 on your phone keypad to raise your hand and request to be recognized. When you're called on, staff will unmute your microphone. Please begin by stating your name and the county where you live for the record. Is there anyone online wishing to comment on the action items?
Chair, I do not see any hands raised on the virtual side.
All right, well, thank you. Is there anyone from the public present wishing?
No comments.
No comments. And any emails or phone calls submitted beforehand? All right. Well, then we'll close public comment and we'll move on to reports. Included in your packet, you were provided ahead of time a report from each of our member MPOs and TPOs. Did anyone have any questions on any of those? Seeing and hearing none. We'll move on to our FDOT district reports. So we'll go through. We have our 2 districts and our turnpike. And so we'll start with Ms. Rihanna.
Good morning. For the District 1 report, I would like to share an update on the Sunrail Extension Project Development and Environmental Study. We recently kicked off that study. We gave notice to proceed January, and we hope to have the study completed by December 2026. In terms of the segment that we're looking at Ponciana into about Haines City. That's the whole swath we are looking at for this study. What to expect from this study? We will refine the recommended alternative identified during the initial TCAR study. We will develop preliminary design concepts. We will forecast rider demand. We will conduct an environmental review and develop capital and operating cost estimates. And lastly, I would also like to add just an idea of the public involvement we hope to do over the next almost 2 years. Of course, we're going to have a study website. We're also going to have a project advisory board. We're going to have newsletters, and we're also planning a transit-oriented development workshop as well. And that is what I have for my report. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Any questions on that or anything regarding District 1? Mr. Hutman?
Yeah, I have a question on your public involvement. As you move forward, will you be anticipating coming to the Metro Plan Board, or will you be dealing strictly with Osceola County and the Poinciana area?
I am hesitating because I'm not sure if we've gotten that far into our public involvement plan and all the presentations we might do, but I will gladly take that back to the team And we will likely for sure be presenting at this meeting since we have a regular attendance.
Thank you.
Any further questions? All right, since there are none, we'll move on to District 5 with Mr. Scarf.
Good morning, Alliance members. I have a few items this morning from our safety office, some updates. I know that some members of this party are that they participate in the safety strategic plan as well as the steering committee. So, but not everybody is. So I wanted to bring some updates from the office. So first, the safety office launched an external website in late 2024. And you can click on the Central Florida Safety Strategic Plan button to learn more about the efforts with the plan and view the Safety Central newsletters, as well as get resources and more. You can see it there. It's kind of a wealth of information. Lisa, we can advance. Again, just offering opportunities to get involved. And so the last steering committee was held in January of 2025. And what I'd like to kind of just point out is some of the focus groups that occurred, some of the points that the focus groups were looking at during that steering committee. So we can advance. So I won't go into great detail on each of these. We can advance, Lisa, I'm sorry. I won't go into great detail, but I'll just kind of hit the wave tops for you on the focus group feedback. They represent the action items that the steering committee chose to focus on, and there are focus groups for each of these items that I will go over, and their efforts are underway. So this slide represents the increased collaboration, and you can see the points of interest there in supporting the safety summit, as well as the community traffic safety teams, and coordination with the schools on education and opportunities. As if you're a part of the steering committee, you are aware that collaboration is one of the largest pieces that whenever we start to think beyond infrastructure. We can advance. So we're looking at the technology that can help us get to zero. And again, this is the Beyond Infrastructure focus group. You can see some of the topics that they honed in on: interest in school speed zones, cameras, speed analysis tools, as well as the insurance industry. And then a continued focus on safety. And this is more of the focus group that is dealing with the infrastructure side of getting to zero, as well as sharing the lessons learned in this in the Safety Central newsletter, which you can find on that website. And then in closing, I'd like to just point out the transportation industry hiring event taking place on April 30th. And you can see there a number of positions that can be filled. And we had a great event out in Volusia at the fairgrounds last month. High attendance, maxed out. So again, feel free to spread the word. We're looking for a few good Floridians. Continue to fill the ranks over at FDOT. And Mr. Chair, if any questions, that concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Council Member Koss.
With the steering committee, yes, they meet, you can find, I don't have all the exact dates in my,
No, but
to
the
my-
safety summit, that's not an event then, that is
are we looking back in time here on the,
on the slides, several slides back, when we talked about the safety summit.
let me see. I think we held the
Okay.
safety summit last year. I believe that's what the slide is referring
Okay.
to. Yeah, and then moving forward, the steering committee and they have breakout focus groups as well.
Okay,
And you can, if you go to the site, you'll be able to participate.
okay, great.
Mhm.
Commissioner Delarey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With this flyer, can we have that flyer distributed to all of us, please, so that we can pass it out as we see fit?
Absolutely, sir.
Thank you.
I'll make sure you have that.
Any other questions? Mr. Barnes.
Yeah, I believe, John, isn't there a safety summit plan for 2025?
Yes, I'm sure you can, and I apologize. I am passing information from our safety office, but all that information can be found on the site.
Alex just said May.
we'll forward out what we received from DOT already. They held one in May, was the inaugural one. If you recall, was at SeaWorld. I believe DOT has sent out an RSVP for the May. I believe it's taking place in Volusia County at the Speedway. Colleen can probably speak a little bit more to that, but we'll make sure all the Alliance members, we pass that that invitation on to y'all.
If there are no other questions, we thank you and move on to the Turnpike with Mr. Fine.
Good morning, Alliance members. One quick update from the Turnpike. Florida's Turnpike Enterprise will be holding a public information meeting for the PD&E on the Turnpike main line from State Road 60 to Clay Whaley Road. On March 4th, the virtual public meeting session will begin at 5:30 p.m. Also on March 5th, the in-person public information meeting session will be held at the St. Cloud Community Center in St. Cloud, Florida, at 5:30 p.m. Registration for both these sessions can be completed on floridasturnpike.com. This project is important. It facilitates regional travel, and it is also part of the Turnpike's widening infrastructure initiative. But with that being said, that is the end of my report.
Any questions for Mr. Fine? Yes, Councilmember Smith.
This at a previous meeting, but what will help us, like he will also have flyers for this event, but if it also could be sort of a list of public engagement, so that way it will be a little bit more succinct to say, oh, here's ways that we want to engage with the public with these upcoming events. Just a thought and suggestion. So.
It's a good point, and I don't know. Ms. Whittington.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members, to the extent that we have the information available at the time that the agenda goes out, we will include a list of those information items or events that are coming forward. So we'll be careful to do that moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That concludes our reports, and we'll move on to action items. Action item A is the election of the 2025 officers. Going into this meeting, our chair would have been Doug Shields this morning, and unfortunately he did not win his re-election bid. So I'm sitting in his place as the current vice chair, and currently the secretary is Council Member Yvonne Minus from Space Coast TPO, and I'll turn things over to Ms. Whittington.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much for stepping in the crunch. We realized as we were putting the agenda together, we're like, wait a minute, we don't have a chair. So we're grateful that you stepped in. So your interlocal agreement, members, states that the members of the Central Florida MPO Alliance shall select one of its members as chairperson, another member as vice chair, and the third member as secretary. These three officers shall serve a term of 1 year until their successor is selected. The newly elected officers will assume their roles at the conclusion of the February meeting. This would have been happening, and we were doing this in October, but we rolled it over to February. And had Ms. Doug Shields been here, he would have chaired the meeting and passed the gavel to you at the end. And you will serve through February 2026. He has already shared with us who the current officers are. A reminder that since the inception of the Alliance, this body has honored a rotation of the officers by the MPOs and TPOs. And for reference, a historical list of those Alliance officers is provided in your agenda packets for information purposes. And with that, we will take nominations individually, beginning with the chair. The chairperson would be a representative from the Volusia Flagler TPO. And is there at this time a nomination for chair?
At the pleasure of this body, it is my honor to recommend Mr. Chris Cloudman, Mayor of DeLand, as chair.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion by Sander and a second by Stone. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Congratulations, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Our next is the vice chair, which would be a representative from the Space Coast TPO.
Councilmember Cost.
I make a motion to nominate Mimi Hanley as the vice chair.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Cost and a second by Smith to nominate Councilmember Mimi Hanley, sorry, for the position of vice chair. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, and congratulations on that vice chair. And lastly, secretary would be a representative from the Polk TPO.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Brian Yates for secretary.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Stone. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, congratulations, and thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And one last announcement from me, actually two. Whenever you are preparing to speak, there is a blue in the very center of your Taden device there. There's a little blue speaker man. If you will activate that speaker, you'll see a red light come on the top and then deactivate it when you are finished. We can have 4 mics that are activated at once. Once that 5th mic comes on, someone is going to drop off. And then my second announcement is before you leave, please see Miss Lisa Smith with your parking validation. She will take care of that for you. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. So now we'll move on to item B, which is approval of the previous minutes. Do any members have any corrections or additions you'd like to see made? If there are none, is there a motion? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second. A motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. That will bring us to item C. Item C is the approval of the 2025 CFM POA meeting schedule. So if you turn to tab 4 in your packets, you'll see the list of dates.
Mr. Chairman, if there's no objection, Bob Delary, I'd like to approve the minute of the schedule as presented to us for April and October.
We have a motion to approve the dates as presented. Do we have a second? And we have a second. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And that brings us to item D, which is the approval of the Central Florida MPO Alliance fiscal year 2024-25 list of priority projects. And we have Ms. Gillette here to present to us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. It's a pleasure to be here today to talk about the annual update of the prioritized project list. We presented this at the October meeting last year, but unfortunately we did not have a quorum. However, we did send the draft list to the DOT so that they could start reviewing it and programming any projects that they were able to program. But we would like to get it officially adopted before we start this process all over again this year. So, as we are all regional transportation planning organizations, it's important that we come together, as Virginia mentioned, as a region, because we want to align our goals and our long-range transportation plans. Why? Because it improves our chances for success. We have competing local, regional, and super regional priorities. We all know that. And we know that roads don't stop at the county line. And, the traveling public they don't really care who owns the road. They just want to get to where they're going in a reasonable, dependable time. And so this is the regional forum where we can talk about those issues. So we've, of course, all developed regional plans to inform the regional prioritized project list. And we know that major transportation projects take a very long time. And so the collaboration with our DOT partners is key. And as Virginia mentioned, projects like I-4, the Coast to Coast Connector, Sunrail, all of those projects have advanced because they are shared priorities. And it is a collaboration with our DOT partners. So as we develop the priorities, the process really began early last year with the development of our independent priority list by each one of the MPOs. But this annual activity is really guided by a process to really provide clear direction to the department regarding the collective priorities for the region. Projects must be considered regional in nature. And so we work together to combine our 6 priority lists, our individual lists, to come up with this regional list. And we decided on very specific categories. The first one is the strategic intermodal system, which is high priority projects of regional and statewide significance. These are projects that will improve the state's economy and mobility. Regional trails are generally the Sun Trail system, but there are other trails that are considered regional in nature. Regional transit projects are typically rail and bus rapid transit projects. The Transportation Regional Incentive Program, or we call it TRIP, it was created to improve regionally significant facilities. These are state funds that are available at a 50% match to encourage local governments in the private sector to fund projects that promote regional travel and commerce. And I think we've all used TRIP funding to try and move our projects forward. And the last category is the Transportation Systems Management and Operations. This includes a set of projects and strategies that utilize technology and real-time operational procedures. So those are the categories that compose the regional list. Oh my goodness, I hit the wrong button. Here we go. All right, and over the past year, each MPO has worked on creating and updating their individual lists. This is just a snapshot of when each one of the MPOs adopted their priorities last year, their individual priorities. Okay, so let's start with the TRIP list. MetroPlan Orlando had a deletion on that list because Neptune Road widening is fully funded. There was a deletion for Ocala Marion, Northwest, Southwest 44th Ave. And then the Polk TPO had added 2 new projects to the list, and there was a update on 1 project for North Ridge Trail. And so we maintain a fully funded SIS list. And the reason is, we all know that there's cost increases and due to lack of revenue, if a project needs to be deferred or deleted out of the work program, we want to maintain that SIS list, fully funded list, because we may have to add it back to the active priority list. Ocala Marion, I-75 interchange is fully funded in fiscal year 25 at 49th Street. Lake Sumter had Project 9, State Road 50, that is fully funded. The Polk TPO, the State Road 60 rail bridge is fully funded. And then Volusia Flagler also has 3 projects, and these may not necessarily be new, but these are fully funded projects. And so then let's move to the SIS needs list. There have been some updates. For the Space Coast Project 13, the State Road 401 bridge replacement. This is at the port. The Bascule Bridges design is underway. So that is new information. Design build, of course, is needed. And then the I-95 interchange at Malabar Road, the PD&E is beginning on that. For MetroPlan Orlando, There are updates on 2 projects, as well as a new project, State Road 60, the Polk Osceola County line to US 441. There is a PD&E that is needed on that project. And project 23 for Metro Plan, that's the I-4 corridor truck parking. Right of way is now funded, but construction funds are needed. Volusia Flagler TPO. There is an update for project 4B, I-4 at Dirksen Drive. And then there's 3 new projects added, I-4 corridor truck parking for westbound Volusia, and 2 new interchange projects at I-95 have been added to the list. The Polk TPO also has a new project, the State Road 60 widening from the Polk Osceola County line to US 441 as well. And so then moving into our trails, the coast to coast trails, and these are considered regional trails. For Tier 1, Metro Plan Orlando, the Orange County Gap Segment 2 is now fully funded. For the Lake Sumter MPO, there have been some updates on 4 of their trail projects, and then the South Lake Trail 3B construction is now fully funded on that project. For the River to Sea TPO, there have been some updates. The Spring to Spring Trail Gap, there are 3 segments. That is, construction is now fully funded. There was a deletion for Palmetto Avenue Gap, and then 3 new trails for the State Road A1A Gap has been added to the priority list. And so then moving to Tier 3, Metro Plan Orlando has quite a few updates here. I won't go through all of them, but there is construction that is now fully funded on the Shingle Creek Trail, Phase 2C and 2B. And then there are updates to various phases on all of these trails here. For the Polk TPO, there are some deletions on a few of their trails because construction is fully funded. Glendale Street Trail, the Fort Fraser Trail Bridge, and the Old Dixie Trail. And then there is a new trail project that had 2 new trail projects that have been added as well, and a deletion. And for the O'Calamarian TPO, the Santos to Baseline Trail, construction is fully funded as well on that project. The Volusia Flagler TPO, there are new projects added to Tier 3. And so, and then the Space Coast TPO, we have a new project as well. Actually, this is an update on a project. US 1 from State Road 50 to Grace Street. Design is funded. Okay, for the regional transit projects, future transit studies, the Sunrail parking feasibility study, that is a new project that has been added. Also, VOTRAN automatic passenger counter improvements is also added to that category. And then the prospective transit projects category, there is a new project for the VOTRAN park and ride facility study. And then for the Space Coast, there is an update. The COCO Intermodal Passenger Rail Study, the feasibility study is now complete. And we are pursuing final design and construction on that project via a Florida State Partnership grant out of Washington. And so then the last category is the Transportation Systems Management and Operations. Metro Plan Orlando, they have added 4 new projects. And so that is new. And then O'Calamarian TPO has added State Road 35 at County Road 25A. Design is needed for that project. The Polk TPO, there's a new project on US 98, Lakeland, Transportation Systems Management and Operations improvements. And then for the Space Coast TPO, the I-95 interchange at Malabar Road, this is for safety and operational improvements. And also the Clear Lake Roundabout is being added which fits under this category because it improves operations. And we are asking for construction funding for that project. And so, as I mentioned, we have sent this priority list, this regional list to the department. Any updates, any new funding that the department was able to do, and I think they're going around and presenting the tentative work program to the different MPOs over the past couple of months. They were just at the Space Coast yesterday presenting. But as we start this process all over again and work collectively, we will put any updates into the regional list and come back to you very soon. And we will, again, as I said, start this process all over again. So, Mr. Chair, that is my report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you, Ms. Gillette, for taking this on, and thank you to the Space Coast TPO for giving her time to us to do this as well. Any
Absolutely.
questions? Mr. Helpman?
Yeah, not a question, just a comment, Georgiana. I'm not sure, but I don't recall hearing you mention that while this is our regional list, it does maintain the integrity of every individual list adopted by each of the MPOs.
Yes, thank you for that. I neglected to say that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Delarge.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the priority list as presented here today by staff.
A motion by Delarge.
Second.
A second by Mr. Smith, or Councilmember Smith, I apologize. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Well, thank you. And now bring us to approval of a resolution 2025-01 supporting Polk TPO's request for the Florida Department of Transportation to complete the 4-lane widening of State Road 60 across Central Florida. And Mr. Corda.
So kind of like Georgiana discussed, we had this item at your last agenda. So for those of you that were here then, I'll try to make it a little more interesting and think of some new things to say. We can serve that November meeting, I guess, practice as it relates to these action items. But this item, little bit different. You know, we all have roads in all our MPOs in respective areas that have you know, level service issues that Georgiana actually just discussed as part of those priority projects where they're congested. There's a lot of new growth and development along them, et cetera. This one's a little bit different than that. You can tell by this aerial, this is a shot of State Road 60 just over the Polk Osceola County line in Osceola. It's hard to see houses or development and gas stations and the kinds of things that we see that provide a lot of congestion on our state highways. So but this road too is also, it's regional in nature. It doesn't mean that it's not important. It doesn't mean that it needs to be, shouldn't be widened or improved. And it's really something that in Polk County, it's been a longstanding priority. I've been at the Polk TPO on their staff for close to 30 years. We have had this project in some form or another as a priority to the TPO for a long time. It was discussed earlier, I think, in Virginia's presentation, talking about the Suncoast Transportation Planning Alliance, our counterparts in the Tampa Bay area, and of course, this regional alliance. Polk is a member of both of those. So much like I think the motto for the state of Pennsylvania is they're the Keystone State. Polk has a different motto, but you could look at us almost like the Keystone State as far as bridging maybe the Northeast and the New England area with the Mid-Atlantic states. So for Polk, and that is one bit of good news as it relates to this resolution, this project. I should report at their meeting in early December, the Suncoast Transportation Planning Alliance, again, the Tampa Bay area group of MPOs, they approved this as one of their regional projects. They have about 10 or 12 regional projects that they adopt on their priority list. This was one of them. Believe it or not, I even got them to include and consider the part into Osceola County, which is well outside their area. I say that somewhat jokingly. They were happy to help us out. So that's what we're doing here today. Again, trying to show some love to State Road 60. It's a regional corridor that crosses the state, and it's important really for all of Central Florida. Couple things about the road to get into some of the details of it. You see the section there highlighted that we're talking about today that extends just, again, for the record, I'll cover it from Polk County Road 630 in eastern Polk County out to US 441 near the Florida's Turnpike in southeastern Osceola County. The majority of the corridor is multi-laned already, whether you're over in Clearwater Beach or you go all the way across the state to Vero Beach. Again, the lion's share of that is already multi-laned. However, that section that I just discussed is a two-lane section. It's 27 miles long. Again, we're hopeful to try to get DOT's interest in that and trying to get some funding in their SIS plan to get this project funded. Some of the reasons, like I said, this isn't your typical, well, the road's congested, we got to widen it kind of a situation. You got to look and think regionally, and what are some of the things that we've had happen that affect our regional roads in the last several years, 5 or 10 years. And my goodness, hurricane evacuations come to mind. And been paying attention to this road in particular during those hurricanes. You see the several listed there going back to Hurricane Irma in 2017, but this road experienced serious, significant congestion as it relates to some of the evacuations, whether it's coming from the southeast coast or east coast or the southwest and west coast of the state. They come through Polk County, and we're, in this case, getting to the eastern side of the state. Another important consideration, when you're just looking at the geography of the state of Florida and you look where we're at today in Orlando, a lot of us probably used Interstate 4, or at least for some, or maybe the majority of our trip here to today's meeting. But if you look at the state of Florida, there's only a handful of corridors that are statewide, extend across the peninsula from east to west, and a very few number of them are actually multi-laned. State Road 60 is one of them, but you really only have 4 other corridors all the way down to Alligator Alley to use. And I know no one around here, if you're coming from Vero Beach to Orlando and State Road 60 maybe has an incident, you need to use another corridor, would really like to even have to consider going down, say, as far south as Caloosahatchee River and State Road 78 or Alligator Alley. So, but again, as it relates to hurricanes, we've seen some significant congestion on these roads in recent years. This is just a snapshot. I think I said this last time. This is what techie geeky transportation planners like me do when there's a hurricane coming. We're looking at the traffic on Google Earth, and it might be a little bit hard to see from your where you're seated today, but I measured that. That was about a 12-mile backup eastbound on State Road 60. And I believe this was during Hurricane Ian, where, again, a lot of the people were coming out of the west and southwestern Florida heading east. So that's, again, a 2-lane road, 12-mile backup to get through one traffic signal there at Yeehaw Junction, they call it. That's one aspect of State Road 60. And another aspect is freight. And gosh, for those of you that have driven around Central Florida, we're seeing more freight trucks on all our roads, all our regional roads. In Polk County, I don't know, we might be known outside of Polk as the freight mecca of Central Florida, but we have a lot of distribution centers and freight traffic that's coming to and from our county. The picture that's in the background here is what's called the Central Florida Integrated Logistics Center in the city of Winter Haven. This is one of the largest facilities of its kind in the nation. It has the ability to process 300,000 freight containers. These are coming from a rail line, picked up, moved, and then dropped on a truck. And then, off it goes throughout the Southeast and most of the state of Florida. Right now, that again, they can process 300,000. That's their I guess their capacity. They're at about half of that capacity right now. That's led to a situation on State Road 60 where there's about 30% of the overall traffic is trucks. So it's significant. There's a lot of freight on State Road 60 is what I'm trying to say. In terms of safety, and this is probably one of the most important considerations, all of us MPOs, I believe we've should by now or in a few weeks, all have adopted safety performance targets for the next year. In the case of Polk, we adopt a target of 0, which matches FDOT's target. However, that is not the situation on State Road 60. This is an important one. And when we looked at the crash statistics out there, not just in Polk, but also into Osceola County, we saw that there was some fatalities, a number of severe crashes and out there. But of the 17 severe crashes that occurred out there, 14 of them were either head-on or sideswipe type collisions. And those are about the worst kind. And again, the majority of those ended up in fatalities. This is just a picture from one of those crashes in Polk County that occurred in April of last year. And this kind of gives you, not to get into the gory details of these things, but gives you an idea what a head-on crash looks like. This is a map, again, that just covers the area that we're talking about, this actually shows the programming. You have this map in your packet, but it just shows the programming of some of the different projects. There's some design funded in Polk County. We've already had a PD&E completed on the Polk portion as you get into Osceola. And this was discussed as part of the priority projects. We're seeking some funding for our advancement of a project development environmental study. There's also a eastbound and westbound passing lane project that's funded in State Road 60. They'll certainly help before we get to a bona fide 2 to 4 lane widening out there. Some of the last things here, hopefully I'm not going too long, but getting towards the end, again, we're again trying to get this board's approval today on this resolution. I should point out that this is one of the projects that was in the regional party projects that you just adopted, so it fits in very, very nicely there. And again, requesting FDOT to consider the addition of some pedestrian improvements. This came up in our bike ped committee when they looked at this project, but this is an important strategic crossing of Florida's National Scenic hiking trail. This part of the state, they have to cross State Road 60 and there's no facility to do that. So that's kind of one little addendum that we're adding here. So as this road is designed and looked at widening by FDOT, if they can include that consideration, that'd be a real benefit to the folks trying to traverse our state on trails. Anyway, that's about the end of the presentation. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. We're looking for support today.
Any members have any questions, Mr. Corday? So included in tab 6 with our materials was the 3-page resolution. Any members have any concerns or additions, comments on that? If there are none, do we have a motion?
I'll move approval of resolution 25-01.
A motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Very much.
Thank you. That does conclude action items, and will move us into our presentations. Presentation this morning we're having on regional transportation system management and operations will be provided by Mr. Eric Hill from Metro Plan, and will present an update on the regional transportation systems management and operations program.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Alliance members. This is an opportunity for me to update you on the regional TSMO strategic plan, which was first presented to you in October. I provide you an update. And for the new members, real quickly, TSMO is the use of information communication technology to improve mobility, reliability, and safety on our transportation system. Now, it doesn't always include technology. Some of the improvements can occur at intersections, changing the geometry of an intersection to improve safety, or just mobility and operations within that area of the roadway. So it doesn't always rely on the technology. There are some other ways and strategies that we can use. And as we move forward with this strategic plan, this is information that we want the Alliance to certainly be part of. This is a larger footprint than just the Alliance, and I'll get to that in a little bit. Next slide. So we started this effort a couple years ago, and it goes from the Gulf to the Atlantic Ocean and includes 10 MPOs, TPOs under a memorandum of understanding that we've all signed. It includes 3 districts, FDOT districts, 1, 5, and 7, the Turnpike Enterprise, as well as 2 toll authorities, Central Florida Expressway Authority, to Tampa Hillsborough Expressway Authority, and also the Federal Highway Administration. Next slide. So here's a footprint of the area that this effort is including. It's pretty large, but we've been able to accomplish quite a bit so far. Next slide. And some of those are, again, the memorandum of understanding. We've established a working group made up of staff from each of the MPOs, TPOs. And there's some strong interest in this work we've been doing. We received some funding from the State Transportation Innovation Council. We've received a grant from the National Institute on Congestion Reduction. And this institute is at the Center for Urban Transportation Research at University of South Florida. And also the center has also included us in one of their Department of Energy grants as a sub-recipient. So we've gotten a lot of interest, a lot of support, and that's the start. And we want to keep things moving. And so far, we've been able to do that. The peer exchange is an effort that we did where we identified regions across the country that are advancing TSMO. And this is multi-jurisdictional organizations. Some include many states, but we included them in a peer exchange to learn some lessons, to share some information, and understand how they operate, and try and understand where the success lies and where the challenges are. Next slide. So why TSMO? Next slide. So usually when we talk about resolving or mitigating congestion or issues on our roadway network, we talk about the recurring congestion. And if you look at this pie, that 28%, that represents the recurring congestion. That's the congestion we all experience every day. We can set our clocks, our watches to it. We know where it's going to occur. We know how long it's going to last. And we typically know why, and it's because of a lack of capacity at a certain specific time of the day or week. But the 72% of this pie is non-recurring congestion. This is congestion that is a surprise that we experience. It's an incident, someone stopped on the roadway to repair a tire. There's work zones, holidays, the weather, which is not a whole lot we can do anything about. And then there's signals, traffic signals, retiming of our traffic signals. We've experienced, or we've been able to show how retiming our traffic signals can improve mobility and operations of our transportation system. But these are instances where congestion is created, and TSMO, the strategies that we have to provide information to travelers to address some of these challenges is where that opportunity lies. And so this effort is advancing TSMO in the planning realm amongst the MPOs and TPOs. Next slide. So next couple of slides, I'm just going to illustrate what is happening across this region. So here's population density from 2015 to 2045. So we see that there's going to be, we all know there's going to be a lot of growth within the next 20 years. And what does that mean? Next slide. Here are commuting trips. And understand that many of these trips are occurring on local roadways or roadways owned by counties in local jurisdictions. And that's where a lot of the TSMO strategies can come into play. The limited access roadways, they do already use a lot of technology and information sharing with travelers. But it's on those local roadways where we're going to start to see more and more congestion, and we're already starting to experience that. And so we want to use some of our TSMO strategies to address this increasing commuting patterns that we see in the future. Next slide. Next comes the congestion. And again, most of this is going to occur on local roadways, not the limited access roadways. So there are some strategies that we can use to try and address this and mitigate the impact. Next slide. And then also, this effort is in line with the Florida Transportation Plan. One of the trends in the plan is emerging technologies. Some of the key strategies are certainly other modes, transit, the use of technology, of course, additional type of roadways. But it also, TSMO, this effort also helps us complete the network, completing the network between the limited access roadways, the local roadways, where we see that's where a lot of the growth is going to occur. And it expands the infrastructure, if you will. And that's the use of information across the various modes as well as types of roadways. And it certainly supports the Vision Zero. Next slide. Now, this is just a fun fact sheet, if you will. Former City of Clearwater Mayor Kreisman, he wrote an editorial this morning in the Tampa Times about how we need to start to embrace the use of technology for public safety, but also he gives a shout out, if you will, to using it for mobility. And this just looks at how we get the return on investments. And in his editorial, he speaks to that. He speaks to we need to show the return on investment. And so this is just a fact sheet showing the impact that TSMO strategies can have. And as he also says, it's got to show improvements and it's got to work. Next slide. Real quick, here's a illustration of what Metro Plan Orlando has been doing for the last 15 years or so with the traffic signal retiming program. Every year, we solicit corridors, roadways from our local traffic engineers to retime the traffic signals. Next slide. And so here are the results from our past retiming effort. 88% of the corridors now have shorter travel times. 81% have reliable travel times. We've been decreased emissions, fuel consumption, and 17% of the intersections now have less pedestrian delay. So it's not always about moving vehicles. We want our program to evolve. What else can this traffic signal retiming effort do for our community besides just moving, besides just moving vehicles? Next slide. And this shows it. So when we started this retiming effort, this is the benefit cost ratio. So we do a before and after study. And a benefit cost ratio is one of the elements that we use. And so you see how it has gone down. And when we started this effort, one of the things we made clear is that we're not always going to see these high BC ratios. It's going to fluctuate because travel patterns change, land use patterns change. And so that's what determines the way that vehicles are traveling. Now, in 2022, we had a negative BC ratio. And that was because we retimed a lot of roads that had schools on them. And I'm more than willing to have that discussion with anyone on why we should reduce speeds on roadways where we have schools. So the next year we did see a positive return, probably because we didn't retime a lot of signals that had on roadways that had schools. Next slide. So the strategic plan. Let me also note that we gave this presentation to the directors on January 28th. So they have been privy to this presentation. And so they are aware of the direction that we want to move the strategic, not only the strategic plan, but this program. Next slide. This is a scope of work. We wanted to develop a vision, refine goals and objectives. We did an assessment of regional strengths and opportunities. We did develop this framework, which is what I'm sharing with you this morning. We identified initiatives and actions. The strategic plan we need to have a tactical plan, and that's the organizational structure part of this. And task 5 is just the completion of the work. We are wrapping this work up now. And we are providing you this presentation. Virginia mentioned the Suncoast Transportation Alliance. We've presented this information to them last week. And again, they've been part of this work that we've been doing. Next slide. You can go to the next slide, Lisa. So the vision, we want to collaborate and we want to leverage what everyone in the region has been doing. Specifically the department. The department has done a lot of investing in the use of technology on the limited access roadways. So now we want to leverage that and show how that can benefit the local roadways. Next slide. Goals and objectives, coordination, collaboration, and partnership, advocacy, education, and support. One of the things I like to say, I like to boast about our TISMO program at Metro Plan Orlando, not only within the state, but nationally. Because I believe one of the secret sauce in our recipe and what I say to folks is that we've been able to integrate it into our DNA, and we've been able to identify champions at the local level and at the federal level. Former Congressman Micah was one of our big champions. And so we continue to maintain that on our policy board as well as on within our committees. And then third is to integrate TISMO into what we do, into our culture. Next. Go to the next slide, Lisa. So the strengths and weaknesses. I shared this with you in October. The Center for Urban Transportation Research, Cutter, they did this analysis for us, and they looked at those organizations across the country that participated in our peer exchange. And the focus areas that they looked at was how these organizations integrate a strategic plan, a work plan, annual review, funding, staffing, governance, and education communication. And so they did this analysis and they identified the gaps between where these organizations are and where the effort we're currently underway. And so they've identified those gaps and they've identified those action items. And those action items are what we have done with the strategic plan. Next. Next. So the framework, here's the regional framework. Those opportunities that we've identified in that analysis of the regional strengths and opportunities, identify focus areas for us. And those we call strategic initiatives. And we've identified priority actions. And priority actions are, again, that's that tactical plan. We've divided it into tier 1 and tier 2. Tier 1, or 1 to 2 year objectives and goals that we want to complete. Tier 2, go beyond that, and how we sustain this program into the future, how we not only sustain it, but we evolve this program, because as is mentioned, technologies continue to emerge and they will continue to change the way that transportation is viewed, how technology is used in transportation, and how we as travelers use that technology. Next slide. So those focus areas, again, they serve as our strategic initiatives, and they're listed here. Strategic planning, evaluating progress, operations, education, communication, collaboration. Next slide. And quickly, tier 1 actions are shown here, how we broke them out with tier 2 actions. Next slide. So next steps. As I mentioned, we had a meeting with all the directors on January 28th. We provided them with our recommendation, and that was to move forward with tier 1 action. And that is to define a short-term work plan, establish interim operational support. And we also requested that the directors help us in developing, I would call it an oversight committee made up of at least 3 directors to help staff move this forward. And so with Blanton from Pinellas Ford, or Ford Pinellas, Georgiana Gillette from Space Coast, and Mike Woods from Lake Sumter will serve as, I'm calling, an oversight committee. I'm sure we can come up with a different way to describe this support. But they're going to help us with developing governance. And then not only governance, but how we allocate resources. And when I speak to resources, I mean staffing, funding, support, how that will all come together. And this is what we will be working on. We've been doing, Metro Plan Orlando, we've been working with Kimberly Horn and the Center for Urban Transportation, Center for Urban Transportation Research to complete this work. And so that is our next step. We'll be developing some information for communicating to boards and committees on TISMO information that can be used to talk about the program. Early on, I think Virginia mentioned she mentioned TISMO master plan. And so Metro Plan Orlando has a TISMO master plan. And so part of this effort perhaps could be helping the other MPOs, TPOs develop their TISMO master plan. And also the next item here, looking at regional pilot programs. These are what I refer to, and I've always referred to as low-hanging fruit. Those projects that we can accomplish and accomplish well, do well, and show merit as ways to, again, to build more and more support. And I like to always refer to the story. I use this as a story as part of this is, the Coast to Coast Trail. I can remember that joint meeting between the two alliance and former Seminole County Commissioner Henley. He raised the question, what do we do? We come together and what do we do? And out of that conversation, when he prompted that, out of that came, coast to coast. Everyone agreed, yes, this is a project that we can all put our arms around and support. And so we see this as an opportunity for this alliance, Suncoast Transportation Alliance, from an opportunity not only to improve mobility, safety and reliability of our transportation network, but advance TISMO planning into the future. So, Mr. Chair, that concludes my presentation, but I want to also allow the directors in the room that participated in our meeting on January 28th to share any perspectives they may have. If there's something I may have misspoken on or something I may have left out, an opportunity for them to also share their perspective. And then of course, I'm available to answer any comments or questions myself.
All right, well, thank you for that. As he indicated, do any members who participate in that wish to add any additional comments? Mr. Woods?
Probably the main discussion between directors was how do we fund this program moving forward? And we discussed a couple options. One was, working through this Central Florida MPO Alliance. The second one was working with our MPO statewide alliance, MPOAC. And I think both those ideas would work well for this TISMO collaboration. And it's really something we all need to do more of too. So.
Yes, exactly. And I think this is so important for our region because, we can't continue to widen roads. And so this is critical. And also just want to thank Eric and Metro Plan Orlando for really taking the lead on all of this. And so now it's time for us to really step in and assist. And I do think, figuring out how to fund it and moving forward is really important. So thank you.
All right. Councilmember Smith.
Great presentation. But being new to this council, a couple of questions just sort of pop out. I would love to get a copy of that to sort of digest it a little bit more. That would be one thing. And another question I would ask, and really what Georgiana said is, we can't continue to widen roads. So there's some other considerations of future ways or innovative ways of doing transportation either across the region or either locally. So just some thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll have a copy of the presentation sent out after the meeting. No, it's a good request. Any members want to give any input on this? It's not an action item today, but it is a presentation and they're sure would love any input anyone has. No? Well, hearing none. Again, thank you, Mr. Hill, for this presentation and all the work you've done on this.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. We'll now have we have two different updates on some safety programs, and we'll start with Mr. Baums from the Ocala Marion TPO.
Yes, Mr. Chair and Alliance members, it's a real pleasure to be here to discuss our safety work in Ocala Marion County. excuse me, a little bit of a congestion issue this morning. Our safety efforts all revolve around what we call commitment to zero. Advance the slides. Okay. This is our Vision Zero Safety Action Plan adopted by the TPO board in November of 2022. But the process to develop this plan really began almost 2 years prior. Actually, when Commissioner Stone was the chair of the TPO, we started having conversations really about the need to shine the spotlight on safety in Marion County. We saw an increase in fatalities like many of you have over the years, and we said, you know, we need to start collaborating more together. And Commissioner Stone became the champion of the project, and we got our TPO board on, literally our TPO board on board to fund this project, to move forward with the action plan. And then she passed the baton to Councilman Bethay. He became our chair and ensured that we implemented the plan and started moving forward with it. So our goal, like all of your goals, is zero. We identified the horizon year of 2045 because we fully understand that this is a marathon, that this is a significant challenge, and it's going to take time, collaboration to achieve zero. We also wanted to be in alignment with our 2045 plan, which of course is now updating to 2050. So the foundation of our plan was based upon Federal Highway Administration's Safe System approach, which I'm sure many of you have heard of. Very comprehensive, emphasizes collaboration, and human behavior is a big part of it too. We also wanted to be in alignment with FDOT and all the great work that they've been doing for Target Zero. We worked closely with Lorraine and her staff of the Office of Safety throughout this whole process, and continue to, of course, work with her like we all do. One of the things we did with Commitment to Zero is we wanted to use this as an opportunity to shift the way we think about safety. We produced some fact sheets, some information dissemination. We wanted the public to understand that crashes are not what we call accidents. There's no oops, my bad in the world of traffic safety. That this is largely a human behavior caused situation, challenge. We also, of course, recognize and understand that design and the way we plan our roadways have a major role in safety. So we just wanted people to understand how vitally important it is for everyone, you know, to have personal responsibility with safety. And hence, that's the reason why we call our plan Commitment to Zero. Councilman Bethay in particular really emphasized collaboration, working together. All of us being committed as drivers, as agencies, as partners, working together to get to zero. That there's no way we'll ever have a chance of getting to zero unless we all commit. And so that's why we've continued to call this plan Commitment to Zero, and why we emphasize annual commitments. And so speaking of that, from the TPO side of things, when we implemented the plan, we talked with all of our partners across the county of, you know, what is everyone going to commit to? Not just what you've been doing, but what you're going to expand upon, whether it's education, awareness, law enforcement, you know, design and planning of our facilities. And of course, as a TPO, when we started telling everybody what we all need to commit to, we had to look ourselves in the mirror and say, well, what are we going to commit to? We're not a road building agency. We're not law enforcement, but we can do things as an MPO. So we've stepped forward ourselves to produce an annual report on safety. And we've been asked to, this particular year, to take a little bit different approach with our annual report, not just numbers, but tell stories and engage with partners of what they're working on and how they made impacts in our community related to safety. We have a dashboard. I know many of you have dashboards. We actually modeled this after Metro Plan. We like all the great work that Metro Plan does. So we wanted to make sure that our public is aware, you know, where all our fatalities and serious injuries are, to be able to locate them, especially if they're in a part of their community. We developed a project list with our safety action plan, knowing the great opportunity that was presented to us by Federal Highway Administration through US DOT for Safe Streets and Roads for All grants. And I'm pleased to report that 2 of our partners have successfully leveraged our action plan to be awarded SS4A grants. The City of Ocala was awarded a supplemental grant through our plan for a speed management traffic calming project that they are just getting underway. Marion County then blew us all away last year by being awarded a $19 million implementation grant. So we're very pleased and happy for our partners. And it speaks to this plan as not just being a TPO plan, but really a community-wide collaborative plan. So our partnership perspective, we really emphasize doing more as an agency as well. We've been appreciative of Lorraine and her staff at the Office of Safety for coming to Marion County the last 3 years for a Stop on Red event. I know our law enforcement really loves that type of event. We continue to partner with our community traffic safety team as our main group that brings people together. And these last two items just want to touch upon. Our TPO board has asked staff as well as our partners to work together to continue to do more. Messages and signs is a topic we're just getting into to see how we can work with all the jurisdictions, potentially DOT, how to inform motorists of safety. And then Safety Matters is a new series, actually, Commissioner Curry initiated through discussions at the TPO board, bringing together partners. In fact, we've got 16 partners that have jumped on board, devoted to a video series on education and awareness in Marion County for safety. We've identified 10. It could expand to more. The Office of, the Public Information Office at Marion County has taken the lead in producing them with support from the TPO and all of our partners. And we're just getting this project going. We've got 3 videos that have been released to the public so far, at least 7 more, maybe beyond that as well. We do have a website that you can see this link, and I don't know if for the sake of time, Mr. Chair, would anybody be interested in seeing one of our videos? Do we have time? Most of the videos are around 2 minutes in length. This first one that I can show expands a little bit more on that because it's a testimonial as well as an introduction to what we're doing in our community, if that's okay. Okay, well, appreciate it. Oh, there we go. Right there. Yes, that one. Yeah.
November 29th, 2021, I was on my way to work and I was T-boned on my left side. I was hit by a distracted driver. Ended up with a shattered shoulder, a shattered hip, multiple fractures to my knee, pelvis, and pubic bone, a C3 vertebrae fracture, a blood clot in my carotid artery, a dissection of the artery, concussion, and severe drop foot. So since then, I ended up initially being hospitalized for about 3 months, bedridden for 6. At 26 years old, I was discharged home, still on a bedpan, and having to be taken care of by my parents and little sister and my nieces. I have had now 2 shoulder replacements and 2 hip replacements before the age of 30. And I still attend physical therapy and aquatic therapy twice a week. My mom actually, one time, in I think a FaceTime, I caught her crying and she said, "It had to have been you." And I'm like, "What do you mean by that?" And she said, "Because you were equipped mentally to withstand and go through a process like that." She said, "There's no way I ever could." And that, it meant a lot because at the time, I definitely didn't think I could do it. But now, coming out of all of it, and there are people that can't. And because it's hard, it is not easy. And I think a lot of times people now, they just think, "Oh, she was in an accident and she's okay now. And I think part of me is still on the side of the road, you know, and I know that how strong that I am mentally, but other people aren't like that. And it makes it, I think, even worse in that case, because it's not easy as it is. If I could give any advice to drivers today, don't be in such a rush. I feel like society as a whole is just so fast-paced. Even now, maybe going somewhere and it's like, where do you have to go? Where that has you weaving in and out of traffic, or has you running stop signs or red lights or whatever it may be. Is it really worth it? And it's not.
We want to thank Lindsay for sharing her story with us. Although it's painful, her story is a powerful reminder of the devastating consequences of traffic-related crashes. That's why Marion County, in partnership with the Ocala-Marion County Transportation Organization, or TPO, has created the Safety Matters Initiative to not only share stories like Lindsay's, but to remind our community of roadway safety.
On average, 95 to 100 people die, and over 400 are seriously injured every year on the roadways of Marion County. The victims of these tragedies can be anyone. It can be our family members, friends, neighbors, or classmates. It can change our lives instantly.
So please, be responsible. Buckle up, put away your phone, and follow the speed limit, because every decision we make while on the roadway matters.
Our goal is to achieve 0 fatalities and serious injuries on the roadways of Marion County. But to reach this goal, we must all be committed to safe traveling every day, because everyone that we encounter has a loved one waiting for them at home.
Together, in Ocala and Marion County, we can make roadway safety matter.
So please, share this message with your friends and family and travel safely.
Thank you for the opportunity. That's my update.
No, thank you, and thank you for sharing that. Very powerful. All right, next we have Mike Woods from the Lake Sumter TPO.
Mike Woods, Lake Sumter MPO Director. So Rob and I volunteered to be the first directors to talk about our safety initiatives in our respective MPOs and TPOs. So I'm going to focus on 2 federal grants we were just awarded, or we've been awarded in the last few years. First one was awarded in fiscal year 23. It's the Safe Streets for All Planning and Demonstration Grant. We partnered with UCF on this grant, and we were awarded $689,000. And it also includes all the local match being provided by UCF, which is big for us. We partnered with the Smart and Safe Transportation Lab as part of the UCF graduate program. That was developed by Professor Otti in 2018, but the work's been going on for about 25 years at UCF. They're experts in transportation safety, mobility, travel behavior, as well as the digital twinning, which I'm not exactly sure what that is, but they're experts in data analysis for transportation. We're really happy to partner with them. And I'd encourage other MPOs to reach out and partner with UCF as needed. So our grant is to provide a Vision Zero action plan for Lake County. We specifically focused on the rural network because part of the new transportation bill, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Acts, they focus on a lot of the rural networks. And so our region, Lake County has 67% of the roads are classified as rural, 82% of the roads in Sumter are classified as rural. And also we have a higher than average percentage of seniors in our area. Sumter County is 50% seniors and Lake County is 26.7% seniors. So those factors contributed to our award of the 2 grants we got. So we're going to focus on the the FDOT road rate classification of the C2, C2T, and C3R roads, which account for majority of the roads in both of our counties. We're also going to look at the non-motorized road users. Currently, 50% of the pedestrian accidents in Lake and Sumter counties result in fatalities or serious injury. And this has been pretty stable over the last 5 years. So UCF is their team. They have about 25 graduate and postgraduate students that are going to be able to do the data collection and screening. And they have access to all the latest and greatest data sets available to our area. They'll do their analysis on a GIS platform. We'll be able to identify hotspots and maybe some distinct corridors for further analysis. If there's a lack of data in any corridor or intersection, this team will be able to deploy sensing equipment and or drone technology to fill in the gaps in technology, make sure we have a complete picture of what's going on in the intersection and or corridor. And finally, there's also some little practicable deliverables as part of this. We'll develop the Vision Zero safety element for our 2050 long-range transportation plan. That's a big part of this. We'll also have the performance measure for the safety plan as part of our transportation improvement program and our listed party projects. So we'll be able to bring safety as a measurable attribute to how we select and fund projects in our area and rate ourselves on how we're doing with safety. The second grant we were awarded, and this one's really exciting, I think. This is really from the TSMO office in District 5. Everybody knows Jeremy Dillmore. He's a graduate of the UCF program, and he worked with all these professors that we're working with now. And he had UCF reach out to us to try to implement this grant, and we were successful in getting it. $1.6 million, smart infrastructure deployment and advanced analytics for improving mobility and safety in rural and senior communities. It's a mouthful, but so the map you're seeing here, this is the darker areas are areas where the senior population is much higher than the national average. So both counties have a higher than normal percentage of seniors. Like I said, in Sumter, it's over 50%. In Lake County, it's 26.7%. The national average is 17%. We also have a higher than normal freight volume on our network, for some of the highest percentages in District 5. So our project team, UCF is the lead. District 5 TSMO office will be the implementation arm of this. They'll install the sensors, and UCF will do all the analysis and data analysis. It includes the MPO, Lake County, and Sumter County as a part of our team. So D5 has been working on a high definition engineering intersection data platform using integrated modeling. I'm not sure what all it means, but we're going to build on the work they've already done. This is a project they've really wanted, and I'm glad that we're able to get this funded and implemented for them. So we'll build on their current research using advanced radar and video-based sensor equipment on 10 intersections in Lake and Sumter County. The intersections will be picked by the counties for further analysis. And hopefully we'll be able to demonstrate the next wave of advanced sensor technology for use, throughout our region and the network, the nation, and for better outcomes on safety and capacity and reduce fatalities and serious injuries on our network. We're hoping if we can be successful in this one, it'll contribute to the widespread adoption of this new sensing and inference architecture for use on our signals and corridors around the area. So really excited about this. It's interesting that we're able to give this is a DOT project. We got funded and doing it for them. So glad to be a good partner with DOT on this one. And that's all I have. So thanks.
Well, thank you. Any questions? Thank you very much.
All right.
Oh, Commissioner Park.
Sorry, I just wanted to make maybe more of a comment, but I appreciate both presentations and Commissioner Stone, that was a great video. It's certainly something I think we should consider doing in our county. And I really love Project Zero. The state has embraced that, and a lot of the engineering kind of things we need to do and the better practices in the education. Probably more of my own personal comment, but I always liked it, especially the last couple of years with the increase in fatalities, kind of ask the question of, how do we connect this with the legislature and the unpopular, maybe it's unpopular opinion that I have that, there's people that have driver's licenses that probably shouldn't have driver's licenses right now. And that's a touchy subject. And how does all that work into Project Vision Zero? Because you can only engineer and do certain practices so much. So I don't know if it's more, like I said, it's more of just my own comment, how that all connects. But I think that's going to be, to get to zero, that's going to be a big part of it, as well as, driver's licenses. Some people shouldn't have them after certain consequences, maybe for a short period of time, maybe forever. But what we need to do to get to that point, I don't know. But like I said, more of a personal comment, but I appreciate all the efforts that are being made right now, because it's been, as we know, it's been a big issue right now with fatalities in Lake County.
I was gonna sort of jump on that train of thought. We had a meeting, I think it was this past week, when we had a gentleman come from Leon County, and he had filled out a speaker card. And I don't know if he's come to any of your meetings, but I did a double take. Why is somebody from Leon County here under citizen comment in Lake County? But he was a father who lost his son, and because of a distracted driver. And so that was one thing we talked at our meeting about, was doing some PSAs on distracted driving. And so we're hoping that we can team up with our MPO, and maybe that will be part of that effort. But the video that you all put together, and I'll like to check out the other ones that you have, but that was just excellent. So yes, thank you for setting a good example there and giving us all something to aspire to. And since we're talking about safety, and we have District 5 here, and Mike was, speaking of the fact that our focus is going to be on rural and rural transitional type areas. State Road 44 from Eustis and Northeast Lake County over to Volusia County and St. Johns River is one of the deadliest corridors in our region, I believe. I was looking at some of the data that Mike had put together, and this is over 4 years, and it doesn't include the last 90 days. 601 crashes, 44 of them serious injury crashes, 17 fatal crashes, and 215 are injury crashes. But then that doesn't include the last 90 days. And I hear about this a lot because that is my district, but it's been getting a lot of attention in the media. We've had some reporters call wanting to talk to us about that. So this is something we definitely want to collaborate with. I know you all have done some safety studies, but we're really interested in getting some of these concepts implemented that will bring attention to speed, no passing areas. There's a lot of really bad curves on State Road 44 in that area. It's dark. And then in some of the pockets of residential areas like Pine Lakes, you have people that are actually walking along the road, trying to cross the road. So we really need a lot of focus there. So I just wanted to bring that up since I had you here today, and it goes hand in hand with all this discussion about safety and trying to drive down these numbers.
Yes, Commissioner, we'll make sure that, that information, I know that Mike's already been working with Lorraine's team on everything and continue that relationship. And I'll be sure that that what you just passed reaches the safety team.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. No other comments on that. The next portion of the agenda would normally be where if there were events or any informational items you wanted to share, if you get them to the staff at Metro Plan ahead of time, they'll put them in the packet, and then anything that was requested today will be sent out after the fact. All right, we'll move on to member comments. Any members of the board wish to share anything with the rest of us? Ms. Gillette.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if everyone is aware, but Mr. Paul Gugelman has passed away recently. And I know he's the attorney for Volusia Flagler. He has been the TPO's attorney for the Space Coast for 31 years. And so needless to say, it's, we don't know what we're going to do without him. And of course, he was the attorney for the MPOAC. So many of you, I'm sure, have interacted with him or know him. But anyway, it's quite a loss. So I just wanted to ask you to keep his wife and his sons in your prayers. So thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up. Ms. Nicklin?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for that, Georgiana. It was quite a loss for us and a shock. And I know you and I spoke, about him the week I think he passed. So, it is a big shoes to fill for a number of MPOs across the state because he represented a number of MPOs. But I also wanted to share something that was discussed earlier. I think Councilmember Koss, you asked about the safety summit. And I did get confirmation back on the date for that. It's scheduled for May 9th in Volusia County at the Daytona International Speedway.
Thank you. Any other members wish to share anything? Here, Mr. Woods.
I just wanted to follow up on what Commissioner Campione said and Colleen, the Central Florida Safety Initiative, their big emphasis is driver behavior, which is a new for DOT. And so that's kind of what we've been talking about today. So the district is in line with, I think, what is needed right now. So.
Well, thank you. All right, that brings us to our second opportunity for public comment. This is for comments in general in nature. Do we have anyone online wishing to speak?
We have no hands raised online.
All right, and I do not see anyone present that would speak. All right. Well, then that brings us, our next meeting will be right back here on April 11th. We'll see everyone back. I appreciate everyone being here this morning. I know it's can be quite a commute to get here, so I appreciate you spending your time with us this morning. And just quickly before we adjourn, all of our new officers are asked to stay for a quick photo op after the meeting. And other than that, we are adjourned.